Welcome this evening. We're so grateful to have you tonight to join us in our community. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. My name's John. I'm the education director here, and we really want to extend our community to all the creative folks in New York City. And so we're grateful to have you here. Please spread the word. We have lots of public programs on the third Thursday every month. We always have something here in the evening, so you're welcome to come play with these reused materials. Remember, everything here are things that were saved from the waste stream, things that would have been potentially thrown out in New York City, and this great program saves all these materials and gives them to artists to do amazing stuff. And tonight, we're so excited to honor our recent fashion designer in residence, David Baptiste. So we love art and we love seeing the art and meeting the artists, but one of the most interesting things is hearing the stories behind the creation process. And so tonight we're going to get to hear a little bit about David's practice in conversation with one of his mentors, Kimberly Jenkins. And so to let you know a little bit about Kimberly Jenkins has spent over 12 years studying the impact of dress and how clothing shapes identity, with a mission to help us think more deeply about fashion and self-expression. Her research is rooted in fashion studies, cultural anthropology, and art history. She's the founder and director of Artis Solomon, a fashion academia company that powers platforms teaching fashion history and cultural awareness. One of the company's most impactful platforms is the Fashion and Race Database, the first and most trusted online resource revealing how the construct of race has shaped aesthetics, worldviews, and industry practices. Kimberly's work is in bridging fashion academia with industry impact has led to collaborations with Gucci, Tommy Hilfiger, Holt Renfrew, Instagram Design, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art, amongst many others. She previously held academic positions at Toronto Metropolitan University, Parsons School of Design, and Pratt Institute. All right. So we're so grateful to have Kimberly here tonight with David. And David, as you know, has been our fashion designer in residence here. And when we first were lucky enough to visit his studio at Silver Arts at the World Trade Center to see his practice with photography, with bridging the connections between visual arts and fashion, we were moved and excited to have him as our resident fashion designer. As he was our designer here, he taught us how much fashion dips its toes into every aspect of the creative process, from the visioning to the physical creation to the teamwork involved, the community building, and it really reminded us how important fashion is as one of the art forms in New York City. And we're so grateful to have David show up here. Now, this is the end of the show, so we're also sad to see the show go down, so please take one last look at it, take your picture, it's your last chance. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome David and Kimberly. Come on up. That's right, that's right.
So wonderful to be here with you all. David and I were just talking about how small our community is and how years can go by and we end up just seeing friends, colleagues, former professors. It's just really wonderful to, for me, former students, see everyone come together and how we maintain these friendships and these relationships. First of all, we want to thank the MFTA, I especially, for inviting me to be part of this and sit in conversation with David. We also wanted to acknowledge that this show was curated by Zola Jordan Savage. Is Zola here?
Zola's not here. We'll get back for Zola.
Zola runs community engagement and made this incredible exhibition possible. So first, I guess a little bit about us. You've learned our bios, but how you and I know each other and how this came together. Do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. I want to start by saying hello to my beautiful community that is here tonight. Thank you so much for pulling up. I'm not being humble, but I really do be super surprised when I get to see the faces behind, you know, some of the support, some of the hearts, some of the likes on the gram, also real life support and people who show up for the work. And I'm super happy about the turnout. Y'all, these are the same folks who RSVP'd last week, and they're here. You guys are here. So how me and Kim know each other, some of you know my story and some of you know a little bit about my history in New York City, but I was a sophomore. I think I was a sophomore when I took your class, and I was studying at Parsons School of Design. I was in the fashion design program, and I remember just being one of very few black students in the school, but loving design and loving, but also, you know, when you're a kid, I felt like a kid back then, even though I was like in my early 20s. I was probably like not even old enough to drink yet. And I remember taking Kim's class. Your class title was wild. Like,
Say it.
Fashion and Race. And
Which may not seem that provocative to some of you, but in the curriculum that was a very provocative title. I don't think it would have survived today.
Yeah. And for, you know, a student coming from the Caribbean, from the South, and seeing that title in a predominantly, you know, non-black school, I was very intrigued. And in that class, and I think we spoke about this on the phone, like, I was super grateful because I think now we have like the girls who are going out on TikTok and Instagram and doing fashion reporting, and we have like a wealth of knowledge. But at the time, there was, but they weren't platformed in that way. So I remember your class being my introduction to the clothes that's on our bodies, fashion design, and how it relates to culture, how it can be political, how it could be used as ways of empowerment, and some of the history, racial history behind the pieces that we wear on our body. So that class was like, we all had that teacher, we all had that one class that you come in and it feels like you left like Sunday service, like you're listening to the gospel. So that was like Kim's class for me.
And that class for me too, I came into it, it was experimental and it went on to run for 3 years. I came in with ideas for lectures, thinking, oh, it's gonna go this way. And what I did not predict was for it to also become a bit of a therapy session for all of us, where it's kind of like throw out the syllabus and we just end up talking about how do we really feel? What are we really observing in the fashion industry when it comes to cultural appropriation, when it comes to underrepresented history in the fashion canon, retail discrimination, the pipeline for especially black students to becoming successful, thriving designers in the industry. I mean, we tried to tackle all of it.
I remember our therapy sessions. I hope they paid you extra for that.
Never. That's the extra work. I mean, and I'm not the only one. Instructors of color, especially black instructors, that's that extra labor you do that, you know, but you don't mind it, you know, because we need it. So your work inspired me as well. Something, I don't know if this is going to come up in our conversation, but now since we're talking about the class, I will never forget there was this one question you asked me, and maybe some of you have also thought of this, but when we were talking about cultural appropriation, you asked me, and I didn't really have an answer for it, what do you do when there's a designer who's making something that is like legibly black or African, and it's designed for people who are not from that culture, community, or heritage to wear it? So in that context, we were talking about brother bellies. And so I think you also, the gears were turning in your head of like, who can wear it? But I want you to wear it. But is that going to be problematic? So.
You know what's so nice? Did that just come to you just now? Like.
Yeah, I always remembered it.
Wow, I remember it too. And I forgot that it was about the brand Brother Bellies. But this was, you know, to give some context, just pretend, you know, you don't know much about fashion history or cultural appropriation or any of the vocabulary that we have to describe, some of the campaigns that we see today and fashion images that we see today. And that was like a real question I had. And I don't know, maybe folks in the audience might disagree with me, but I feel like 6 years later, I've come to a resolution to that. I remember I was watching an interview for Complex with
Aria?
yes, with Aria and Mo Lola, and they had brought up, if you're not familiar with Mo's work, you should pull it on your phone, but they brought up this iconic tank that she has, and it says nigga on it. And she asked her that question of, well, you made this, you're allowed to make this is your culture, but how do you feel if once it's on your site for like $100 and something, anyone can order it, what does it mean when it leaves the website and it might show up on an Asian person or it might show up on a white person? And
like a Kendall Jenner walking
Yes.
around wearing it. How did that land?
She would. But she said something that was so simple, and I hadn't looked at it that way. And she was like, I made this product, I know who it's for. If a white person wants to look a fool wearing it, that's on them. And it was such a simple answer to the idea of like who has ownership and who's allowed to kind of like exist in these products. And I don't think at the time when I was in your class, I had looked at it that way or had considered that. But I know it's much more complex and layered, but I thought that moment was a very simple answer to something that felt so complicated in my head.
Wow. Well, so as we go into talking about your work and the times we're living in, well, so first of all, an acknowledgement that must be said of the times we're living in. I mean, we're living in precarious, violent times, whichever end of the political spectrum, however high the stakes are for you personally or how low the stakes are for you personally in times like this. We need to acknowledge that. We're dealing with violence, genocide, famine, anti-blackness, homophobia, anti-immigrant sentiment, you name it. I mean, it's just a whole list of things that we're up against. And so as you're navigating this, and we start this conversation about soaring high. First of all, how do you identify? Where do you come from? Many people in this audience know you and your work. Many of them may know your heritage. Some may not. So first, before we start diving into your work, I think it's important for the artist or the designer to be able to explain where they're coming from and the significance of that, just to contextualize this.
Thank you so much for asking that, Kim. I think oftentimes, folks, I try to bring a lot of joy into the work, and it is joyful. People really do leave the work feeling positive and happy. However, I'm coming from a culture that I'm extremely proud of. I'm from the Caribbean, from the island of Haiti, Haiti. I was born in Port-au-Prince. I left when I was 6 years old, and I migrated to Miami, Florida with my older brother, my older sister, and my father. And we grew up all over North Miami. Miami is, I don't know if it's Miami or New York, I want to say the second largest Haitian population in America, like outside of New York and the island of Haiti itself. And so when we had moved to the country, we were, we was on food stamps. We were living all throughout the different projects of Miami, Florida. I was at the time coming in terms of like my own queerness. And so that's a little bit of context of like cultural history behind who I am, the neighborhoods I come from. When I had always wanted to study art and fashion and design. I remember, I think like a lot of you here, who are in the creative industry, just watching documentaries, going through magazines, like seeing television, and I remember like experiencing American culture through television, through like MTV Cribs, like America's Next Top Model, through like Vogue covers that would come out, and we would go to the CVS store to go look at the Vogue editorials, and so a lot of my story is intersectional in the sense that I'm discovering my queer side. I'm dealing with extreme poverty. I'm also dealing, and you know, now it's so beautiful when I say I'm from the island of Haiti, and y'all, you know, y'all are hyped. People forget that it wasn't always like a proudful thing to be Haitian. People wanted to say that they were everything but Haitian, that they was mixed with Dominican, or like they was part French. So you're also coming into a country where you're not necessarily welcome, and ironically, we were not welcomed by the very people who looked like us. And then we moved to New York City.
So then so where did you go to school?
And Miami or New York?
Yeah.
I went to a couple schools. I was like a bad kid. I got kicked out. I could fight. I got kicked out a lot of schools. But they say don't mess with the gay girls. Like, don't. But I went to a school called Miami Beach Senior High. It was one of the largest school districts in Miami, about like 3,000 kids. And that school, I really like I left the hood, and that was like my first time meeting people who from different cultural backgrounds. I remember I was like in the gifted scholars classes, and I met like the white Latino kids, I met like bougie kids. I saw a world outside of my roach-infested apartment back in Miami, Florida. And with the aspirations that I was telling y'all about, there was a design school called Design and Architecture Senior High School, and you know, some great designers have come out of it. It was a magnet school, and they only accepted like 120 kids. So I went there for high school. I got not kicked out, I auditioned 3 times, and then my friend Mia Lockhart, she encouraged me one more time to audition. And at that school, it was like really rigorous. Like you had to audition. They like would test your eyes. They would make you sketch. It was like a whole day. And from there, I got like a full ride scholarship to go to New York to come to Parsons.
So you fought your way through this, and so by the time you got to Parsons, what did your collection look like? Because I met you midway through your student journey. What was your thesis collection, and how was that starting? Was it the kernel of something that would shape into what we saw more recently, like when you had an exhibition at Mokrata, and now here tonight?
Also, just a quick note, if we could move, because I think we're on the first slide, if we could continue them, if it's possible. But to answer the question, for whoever here is in school, I feel like what you pursue in your education, it really does become kind of like the groundwork that oftentimes might lead your career, or that I feel like, you know, I'm 5 years into my professional career, and the ideas that I had started at Parsons are some of the ideas that you see in the exhibition. At the time, I was like obsessed with denim. I think denim is the people's canvas, it's the people's material. It's the material that a lot of designers, when they first start designing, it's accessible to them. So, but also I was trying to tell I don't think I was trying to tell political stories in the clothes, but I was trying to tell I wanted to capture everything that I had shared with y'all about my upbringing in Miami, some of the people who were around me. I wanted to capture that like in clothes and storytelling through fashion presentation, through garment presentation, and that it was very rough at the time, and we've refined it little by little.
I want to talk about style as a path to citizenship. You and I had a wonderful long conversation a couple weeks ago.
We did.
And that was a statement that you had made, and that really has become sort of your design thesis. So this idea of migration, style as a path to citizenship. Can you tell us a bit, what does that mean? Or mean to you?
I was having dinner with my friend Dauda and Miles, like I've been at their house too much, but like 2-3 days ago, and this topic had came up because they were asking me about my upbringing, and I remember my father, we would have no food in the fridge, like nothing, and this man always had like perfectly pressed pants. His shirt was pristine white. He always smelled good. His shoes was always shiny, and it was through. And he as shady as he was, like in the house, like the way he presented himself to the world, he was like they're always happy. And through him, indirectly, I learned that like you don't gotta look like your struggle, like you don't gotta look like the things that you've been through in this life, and that the way you present your attitude and the way that you present yourself through fashioning your body, you can tell a whole story completely different from your actual reality. And at the time when we came into the country, we came in as a green card holder, and when we moved into the U.S., we had, and folks who's ever heard me talk, I love saying this, like we wanted, you come to the U.S. to aspire for the American dream. And I think we all have a vision of what that looks like, especially if you're an immigrant. But however, we was like living in the projects. Like you come from your country, you think of America a certain way, and then you're, greeted in the ghettos. And it was with that mindset and that experience that I wanted to we started dressing apart. I remember in the house, they didn't want us to look like the African American kids that was like in our neighborhood, because they was like sagging their pants, or you can't wear your sneakers that way, or you can't wear this color in this part of the neighborhood. And as we were becoming, like getting educated, going to school, it was about looking the part. It was about kind of looking the part so that you could fit into your community, fit into your neighborhood, not look like a nerd, not look like what they would call like an Oreo, but still, I would watch my brother kind of like balance out his style of how is he gonna dress so that he could go to school, but then no one's gonna like mess with him on the block. But then he could also go to the Apple store and go to work, and down the stage, his bosses tell him, you look like ghetto, or you need to like pull up your pants. And that kind of started the thesis of the different ways that Black Americans and also immigrants style themselves, present themselves in different settings to kind of move through society, to kind of navigate through becoming an American, whatever that looks like, whether through its assimilation or other methods.
I think that the negotiations that you speak about growing up definitely come through in the collections that when we were walking through the exhibition an hour ago, how you explore those things. Some of it can come off kind of campy, some of it is just really just luxe, it looks like something that could, be couture. So it's really fascinating, especially how migration and resourcefulness is anchored in your work, that never leaves you from your upbringing. This one thing you had told me was on the surface of each designed piece of the material, there's a story being told. It is literally ingrained in the collection, in the pieces that you see. So I want to talk now about storytelling in the clothes. You've been telling us a little bit already about your deep family history, but family, culture, that definitely leads and drives your work. I was just wondering, is there anything else that you want to explain about how that also, in what other ways does that drive your aesthetic or your design point of view? Anything else that seems to be a muse or drive the way your approach to design, materials, colors, motifs?
I think MFTA is like so tired of hearing me say this, but I'm a material girl. Like, I love a good fab material, and I think that's why this residency made so much sense for me without even realizing it, because I had never imagined being a part of the MFTA community or producing the kind of work that I had produced while I was here. And when I'm, aesthetic, I think there's two things I always try to like divide, and I divide them, but they do come together. There is the political things, and there are like the cultural parts of the work. But I'm also just a person who loves good design. Like, we buy clothes, we buy furniture, we live in a design world, and it comes from just a whimsical place. I think for me, I used to get in trouble a lot in school from my design professors. I've changed my mindset now, but even at Nike, when I was designing there, we were like taught form first, and some of y'all probably have heard this, form first, color material after, because form was always looked at as the pinnacle, the apex, the thing that was like the most important when it came to a design. And for me, I felt like the color and the material was the most important. Research shows that like when you enter a store, color is the first aspect of a garment that you see, and then you see everything afterwards. And some of the materials, working with denim, I remember when I first got to Materials for the Arts, I think the week I came in, there wasn't like a bulk of materials. There was mad furniture, everything else, but the fabric section was needed a little something. But as my time progressed here, I was blown away by like the materials that would come in, the fabrics that would come in, the discarded textiles, rolls of them, and we got like a lot of cottons. A lot of cottons would come through, like bulks of cotton from like different brands that are in the city, like Tory Burch. I feel like custom Ralph Lauren, like yardage, things that I think would have been discarded, but they made their way, they found a second home here at Materials for the Arts. And so I'm always, when I start designing, I'm always looking at a surface and I'm wondering like, okay, how can we like add some seasoning to it? And that goes with like dyeing it, etching it, distressing it, putting materials through these rigorous processes to create something that feels like spectacular, that feels fresh. I love like a good jacket. I think a couple folks, including my friend Roxy, came up to me and was like, I love this surface. I'm like, baby, we made it. Like, I love that about a garment, that you can get a surface that's the main selling point. That's the point that like wants to make you have it.
That's what stands out to me. Is there a way, for whoever's progressing the slides, I wanted to find a couple pieces that you could speak to that really exemplify that. I wonder, did you have a jacket, or we could do one with the hairstyles?
Ooh, we could talk about the hair.
Which ones would you like to, maybe like two, that we could really kind of show the audience of what you mean by what's, oh, yeah, actually a couple of these. Go back one, could you go back?
The mural wall, I think, would be fab. I feel like folks would know about that. Yeah.
Ooh.
You good. Actually, this is good. This is great. This-
That works, because we actually, this is good because we get several.
And this is kind of jumping into, it's hard to not talk about the materials and also intertwine with some of the collaborations.
So we're gonna get to the collaboration. Do you feel like we need to set that up first before we go into this then?
Yeah.
Okay. So an important part of David's work has been not just resourcefulness, but collaboration and community. And if you like, should we show the 2-minute, do you have the 2-minute film?
Let's do it. I'm a material girl. Like, I love a good fab material. My name is Baptiste, a visual artist working in photography and fashion design. I'm exploring the experience of Haitian Americans in Miami, Florida, and in New York City. I'm working on my second solo exhibition. Soaring High is a fashion exhibition and immersive installation that is about the metamorphosis of a Black immigrant boy and what that looks like manifested in style and silhouette. I love dreaming of the idea of making prototypes, little samples, little developments, swatches. It all begins with an amazing material, with a fabulous material. Okay, I was just about to be bleached. Are we gonna dye it? What's the story of this material? Where was it before? They kind of tell you what they want to become, or sometimes they don't tell you anything, but they just whisper to you. And that feels really good, and you bring it into your studio. And that part has brought me a lot of joy. I think I'm just figuring it out. I want to do everything. I want to try everything. So I think I'm in a place of, I'm gonna just see where life takes me.
So I think one of the standouts with the women's hairstyles, the textures, the sequins, I want to talk about that, and also denim and indigo. So let's start off with the collaboration that you pursued, putting this together. Take us there.
So
How did it come together? Where was it? What was it like, the process?
throughout my time at Materials for the Arts, I was discovering that I was the kind of designer and creative that wanted to bring together different worlds and different types of people, different types of skill sets, merge them together to produce a product, to produce a piece of art, which is in nature how design, I feel an art works. And I also wanted to bring all the different orgs, nonprofits, creative institutions that have supported the work, that has been a part of my creative journey. One of them has been the Young Arts Foundation, and they created the film that we see today. And then the other was BPD Wash House, which Materials for the Arts already had a relationship with. But what made it even sweeter, back when I was in college, in your class actually, I was working at a factory in New Jersey called BPD. And for those who don't know, denim is a material, it's very much alive. We all own probably a couple pairs of denim, and it's woven And I'm not gonna get too techie with it, but one of the threads is dyed in indigo, and the other remains white. And that's what makes denim denim. That's what makes it unique to it of having its unique surface that no other fabric or material in this world has. That's what makes it, that's what you're able to kind of like scratch it off or wash away. So at the wash house that I was working at, they had something called a laser machine. When I was working there, they had it, but it wasn't set up yet. And so when I got to MFTA, I was like talking to Tara, and Tara was like, "What do you need? Like, how can we help you? Like, what materials do you need here?" And I said, you know, I need like some cottons, I need some leathers, I need some denim. And MFTA connected with BPD. We were able to they had a couple roles. You know, part of the residency, for those who don't know, was that you had to use the materials that are here. And so BPD sent us some yardage of denim, but mostly they would send denim legs. So if you work in fashion, a lot of the times they'll do kind of like testing and prototypes and little samples. And they'll do like something, like they'll do a denim leg. They'll do like half a leg to test out an idea. So they had like hundreds of those. So they sent boxes of those to MFTA, and a huge part of the design process was chopping those up, collaging them together, like sewing them together. And I'm someone who, if you follow the work or you know a little bit about my work, I love images. Before I fell in love with fashion, I fell in love with like powerful, like documentary style images. And I also love like fashion images. And so I think in a very like graphic way. And we were laser etching. We brought the denim back to BPD. We were able to negotiate a really awesome deal with them. And using their laser technology, we would like etch away. We would create these portraits through laser etching, through laser like engraving on the indigo. And so a lot of the hair portraits y'all see in the exhibition, both on the skirt and also on that big mural wall, it was through that process. And I think, you know, I feel like I'm always creating work where it's like, if you know, you know. Like if you're part of the culture in that way, I'm always nodding to the culture, because it's not, I don't want to say me trying, but it's the things that I love. It's things that I think that exist within the Black community, that are just like spectacular and like whimsical and just pure joy. And one of the things I think that brings me a lot of joy is when I live in Crown Heights, and there's a lot of like African hair braiding. There's like a bazillion in my neighborhood. And so I wanted to pay an homage to like the hair catalogs that you would see at the beauty salon. And so a lot of the women that you see.
Can we pull that image up? I thought there was one that was more, is there one that's more centered?
Oh, like a larger one?
Yeah, there was a larger one, I thought.
I think it might be the one down there, or not?
Yeah, sort of. I don't know if they can zoom in, but her, oh
Ooh,
yes.
Oh my God, you're doing magic work back there. Thank you.
Yeah, so can you tell us about the inspiration, the African hair braiding, those images that we always see kind of plastered on the walls or in the windows to sell different hairstyle looks, and how you were able to achieve these images on the materials?
So those are the images that I was referring to that were laser etched. And a lot of the women that you see in the massive portrait, they're like sourced from the internet. It's a mixture of images that I sourced on the internet, but also like the women in my life that I have portraits of on my phone. I was like, this would look really beautiful on a piece of denim. So And also, I think something that we wanted to touch on was this, speaking about indigo and its connection to like Haiti and the Caribbean. When people think of like some of the cash crops that Haiti were known for, like sugar, coffee, people really forget about the history of indigo in the Caribbean that was like cultivated by enslaved people. That used to be, you know, Haiti was one of the richest French colonies in the world. It supplied unimaginable wealth to the Europeans. So for me, working with denim, working with indigo, and showing up in the world in this way as like a queer black immigrant, it just, I don't know what the word would be, but I feel really, it's beautiful that that's the legacy of it, and I get to come here and play, and I get to come here and be a kid and explore this material, the same material that my ancestors were touching, that they didn't have a choice to. I have like a choice to create like something beautiful with indigo, with denim.
And I want to emphasize again, even now that you told us that story in high school and how they even test your eyes and just how laser focused you've been with this. You're an incredibly talented photographer also, so I'm not too surprised that you're always looking for the image or looking to create some sort of image on the surface first. This one, I don't know if you all can see. Can you see men's heads on this? Can you tell us a little bit about this one and also the technique you used for the designs there on this piece?
The jacket that's directly next to the like the textile tapestry, it was created in collaboration with another artist. I think when I speak about collaboration, I'm speaking about like there's the institutional part of it of like BPD Wash House and Young Arts coming into film and creating this at the warehouse. But there's also a large community of artists, artisans that are part of this work, that make this work come together. This, the jacket, one of my like first months here, Maria, who works here at Materials for the Arts, she brought this, yes, Maria. She brought this material into it was like a Carhartt, like a heavy canvas. And I think we lost it, but by the time, but we were able to like, I had a couple yards in my studio. And so it's a barbershop catalog, it's laser etched, and there's a young woman by the name of, her name's Shakira, and she is she's the only black person I know, and only black woman I know who is a master at like chain stitch embroidery. And if for those who don't know, like chain stitch embroidery, you'll see it in like a varsity jacket. It's like really beautiful. The pedal for it is under the machine, and you can't see your hands. You're moving it like this. And she, after this was laser etched, she did all the beautiful like stitching detail on there. So these are the kind of like nods to community, nods to people who are behind the scenes of just the surfaces that you see in the work.
There's just three more things I want to share with the audience that I want to make sure that you see. The image of the piping. Can we pull up that image, the ensembles with the piping? Kind of the circuitous.
I think right there. Go up a little bit. Slide 12. I think so.
Yes. So, this is perfect actually. So this kind of ticks all the boxes. I wanted to talk about the piping and kind of the looping and circulation and maybe connections to, movement and migration. I want to talk about the do-rags and hair bonnets and just the provocative nature of wearing those out, especially when it comes to respectability politics. And then last I want to talk about, and the sagging. And then last I wanted to talk about on the head.
Some of the sacks?
Yeah, the sacks on the head, which there's also another slide that'll have that one also. But can you, let's start with talking about what you were doing, what interested you with these piping details?
You must have actually found this material. Remember you came to the studio, you found this roll that the top is made. While I was here, people would be like, David, this looks like you. You should make something with this. So there's the part of the work that is just whimsical, and I think I'm always looking for a way to make a surface kind of like 3D puff out. I love like soft sculptures like on the body. So that's the part of me that just enjoys that element as a visual artist. Conceptually, you know, although I'm happily an American citizen, I still have like a lot of family from the Caribbean who are still arriving here, who take routes from throughout South America. They enter Brazil, go through Mexico, enter Texas. And when you arrive at Texas, you know, you could either be deported, or if you're lucky, depending on what kind of resources you have, you know, you could stay in the country under TPS. So a lot of, I think spiritually, I love the squiggles. I love things, I don't know, curvilinear design. It just speaks to my heart. However, conceptually, I'm referencing like a lot of maps. I'm referencing migration trails from Haiti into South America, into the US. And so what you see in the garments, a lot of the times when you see these 3D curvilinear designs, they're maps. They're maps of crossing the Atlantic. They're maps of coming into South America. I'm telling these kind of journeys on our body. And that kind of ties back to some of the hair portraits we were speaking about, how
The hair braiding.
yes, and how these braids literally were roadmaps to freedom. And so I'm kind of hijacking that kind of mindset, thinking, and reinterpreting it into garments, reinterpreting it into everyday wear, like tank tops and skirts. And I love the folks who have come seen the show and they'll make little comments about, like, oh my gosh, she has a bonnet, fire. I didn't think I'd see a bonnet in an exhibition. And I know there's a lot of discourse about whether a bonnet is appropriate for the workplace, for Zoom meetings, that if they should be seen at all. I love a bonnet. I love when I'm in Crown Heights and homegirl got on paint bonnet, paint top, paint boots, and that's the bodega fit. I love the bodega fit. I think, Kim, we were literally laughing about this in the hallway. I was saying, I want to see her come to work in a pin tuck suit with a matching pin tuck bonnet. Like, I think, to me, it reminds me, you know, I remember seeing so many images of like the French women, like the white French women who would be at the couture shows, and they'll have like their little different head wraps, and then they'll have the hats. And I'm like, okay, like when I see a bonnet, it's a sculptural element, depending on the kind of hair that you have and how your hair is like wrapped up. It follows that shape, and I think, to me, I think they're really beautiful. So I wanted to, these are kind of like the different little nods and stories that are like happening on the clothes.
And then the sacks, also speaking to migration and carrying. We had a side conversation about the multicultural aspects of that, especially the plaid, because I was mentioning in some Asian cultures, there's also the plaid bags.
And I forget that they're multicultural. I really do.
Did you have you had a lot to say about the sacks.
I do. I swear, I was just taking a minute. I'm coming to it, I swear. The sacks that are on the head, I remember when I was here at the residency, and I wanted to make like I love a plaid look, but I couldn't find like a plaid roll. And I couldn't find like a nice, I didn't have enough fabric. You know, when you're at MFTA, it teaches you to like work with what you have, and it teaches you to be resourceful and imaginative with the materials that are available to you. And I was really attracted to these plaids because being from the Caribbean and also just being from Miami, this is like these plaids hold like cultural significance. We see them like in our neighborhoods. We see them like on our uncles. We see them all across the Caribbean, also in Africa. Depending on your cultural perspective, you might have a different story about these plaids. And I was seeing like a visual connection between the plaids that the iconic boxers that everybody owns and the ones that I would see in the Caribbean. And the sacks that are on the head, it's referencing a lot of the merchants that selling rice, selling coffee, selling all types of like wonderful things in the community. And it's not a burden to carry these things. It's a skill. It's talent, and people carry these things in the Caribbean with pride. And so part of the show and styling yourself, on the bottom of this look, he's sagging his pants, which was like what we saw when we came into the U.S. I think me and my brother, could you believe it? I used to sag. And the sagging comes into the assimilation of like wanting to be a Black American, like the immigrants from the Black immigrants who were coming into the project who wanted to assimilate into Black culture. And that is how I came up with like the multicolored sagging juxtaposed with the sacks on the head. It was about like carrying your past, carrying where you came from, and then coming into the promised land with this new kind of like style identity.
So much of this show, in closing, was about, and through this residency, was about, what was the phrase exact? Creative reuse. And so you're sustaining your culture through the pieces that you design. You also were challenged in this residency to work with what you have, make do, and make something beautiful from it. So a phrase, especially in my time teaching, that has been used, overused, misused maybe, or lost its meaning, or has different interpretations, is the word sustainability. And you and I were speaking privately a bit about that. And we've got some people in the audience who that is a critical mission of theirs, sustainability and circularity. What does sustainability mean to you?
When I started this residency, I was like low-key scared of that word. I don't think, although I went to Parsons and that was their selling point within the fashion industry, working with denim, for example, it's, I don't know if y'all know, that's one of the most destructive textiles out of all of them, next to polyester. From the gallons of water that are used to produce it, the labor, the way that they even discarded the indigo. So it wasn't something I truly understood, and I felt like I was sustainable in my photography work in the way that I was, everything that I would do in my sets and in my images, they were like always sourced. Like sometimes we might buy one or two things, but in my design practice, I always had felt like it wasn't my problem, like it wasn't like my issue, that it was kind of like it was like, I kind of just got here, well, I gotta take care of this. And when I was approached by Materials for the Arts, I was a little surprised because I was like, damn, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to produce, like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do my best work within this lens, but that wasn't even the lens they were putting me in. That was the box I was putting myself in. And so coming here with the one rule of you can't buy nothing, it gotta come straight from here, it really forced me to reimagine like my practice. And my practice has like radically transformed in terms of how I source materials. For someone who's so material driven, and that being kind of like the first leap into how I design a collection, now, now I'm having interviews with people about sustainability. I never thought that that would be my thing. I have a lot of thoughts about it. I sometimes feel like emerging designers and emerging brands, I don't want to say brands, emerging designers are sustainable by nature. We're small production, we keep things circular, they're within the community, they're getting produced right here in the garment district, or they're making them in their basement. A lot of the prototypes and samples you see were made here at MFTA, materials found here at MFTA, things that were donated. And so a lot of the emerging brands, that's who are my contemporaries, that's how they're making work. But sometimes I feel like, yes, I want to continue to make work this way, but the burden of that word and the responsibility of that for emerging designers is really heavy.
Well, in closing, I'm not sure if we have time for Q&A, but I wrote a little something for you. In precarious, violent times like these, David's work shows us. Now I'm messing up my story. I'm all nervous.
You can start over.
In precarious, violent times like these, David's show gives us unwavering hope. At the heart of David's work is positivity and joy, but not in a naive way. The courageousness of each piece has navigated the obstacles of capitalism, xenophobia, anti-blackness, and more. Soaring High, as its title suggests, rises above hatred and trauma and shows us the love that David Baptiste has for craft and fashion, as well as David's dedication to community and resourcefulness, which is a necessary trait to survive and thrive in this world. Do we have time for a couple of questions? Does anyone?
We have time for just a few, and then you can always ask questions at. Raise your hand if you got a question.
If there's no brave souls, that's okay. We could turn out.
Perfect. Teaching? Is David a designer that? Oh, absolutely, yeah. Towards the beginning of our conversation, you've helped transform the way I think or see what's possible in terms of fashion design and communication and expression. So absolutely, David's a designer that just goes in the canon of my fashion design pedagogy. For sure.
I can't wait to get you in a piece. I feel like, and this is gonna sound so cheesy, I feel like spaces like materials for the arts and resources like this residency program, it makes me feel, I don't wake up in the morning with the burdens of am I gonna be sustainable today? I think, however, I do feel really good when I come here and I shop and I go through the buffet of epic materials and I make a garment and I see it, on somebody on the gram. It was a custom for somebody, or it makes it down the runway, and I know that that material has a second life and a new life, so that excites me. But if I'm being so honest, that is not a burden I wish to carry.
As an emerging designer whose inspiration is so rooted in their own culture and heritage, how do you see your brand?
It wasn't better that you could get a little closer. Yeah, they
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to know, as an emerging designer whose inspiration is so rooted in their culture, heritage, how do you see your brand evolve in the realm of commerce, mainstream success, to kind of remain true to the DNA of your brand and maybe also sustainable? Do you have a strategy? Do you want to emulate other brands that you've seen evolve and be, sustainable in their success?
Yeah. We can also.
Thank you for that fabulous question. If there's any fashion strategists that be doing the marketing and all that good stuff and the business and the sales, that is, I think, when I started producing my clothes, people were gravitated by the designs. They also felt a sense, they felt like they connected to the stories and the communities that I was showing in the clothes, and that happens to like a lot of designers. That's what, I guess, what fashion is. Do you see yourself like in that community? Do you feel like, this is my world? And I feel like that was the springboard for me, telling immigrant stories, telling Haitian stories, telling things that were like blackity black. And now I've arrived at a point where it's everything that you've mentioned of, figuring out the business of it. But I think I get really excited by my contemporaries and some of my friends who live all over New York who like have made to order systems that want like, right now everything we do is made to order. However, that's not becoming sustainable anymore. Now we want to like do small batch orders in New York City. So I think one of the things I'm grateful for at Parsons was that I got to take a class like Fashion and Race, and you see this issue with a lot of designers, especially American designers, where you see people, I think in American fashion, people hold on to the hype. They hold on to the story, fashion loves to bring someone up and kind of marinate in that. But a lot of these times these brands are coming into the spotlight with no like system or backing or greater support. And so slowly every day as I meet people, I'm building my teams. I'm learning how to, I had like my first like intern for like 4 months. It's those little things. I have meetings with my PR people. So it's been fun building a brand. It's very scary. Anyone in the audience who, want to talk after, I'm always taking advice. I'm always learning. So thank you.
Thank you for this wonderful, amazing presentation. So for young people who are aspiring designers that want to get into fashion, you went to Parsons, I went to Parsons too, great school. Do you feel like it's necessary to go through fashion school, or is there other means for young people who may not have the resources or the option to take their ideas to new heights without a fashion school? Do you think it's necessary?
Why the last question had to be so hard? That's a wonderful question. Thank you. I feel like we've had this conversation. I'm sure you've had this conversation, and you could weigh in too, because Kim's work. What did you say earlier? You knew all the schools back and forth, like, because you've been at Pratt, FIT, Parsons, so you've seen it from an educational point of view. But I'm not gonna lie, like, there's not a right or wrong answer to that. However, this is how I feel about it. I think if you have the opportunity to go to fashion school, I think you should go to school. You know, I think I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends. We're seeing a lot, I feel like I see a lot of working in the industry, particularly Gen Z, who's calling themselves, you know, creative directors and just self-proclaimed titles, which I love. However, I think if we look at the people who came before us, the McQueens, the Gallianos, the epic filmmakers and artists, they really honed in on their craft. And I'm not saying that school is the best way to do that, but working in the industry, I've seen a huge difference between the folks who had a formal education and they're able to enter design meetings and they have the vernacular and the vocabulary to speak about design. They understand how clothes are made. They understand the garment district. But school, again, is a privilege. I think FIT is the most affordable fashion school in New York City. The other schools, like Parsons and Pratt, they're, you know, ranging at $70,000 to $80,000 for their tuition. I think what's beautiful about the time we live in at the moment is there are so many alternatives to school. There's kids who sew better than me who learn how to sew from TikTok. I still believe in mentorship, you know? I still believe in like interning and learning the industry that way. I've also met many designers who's never gone to school, and they are master tailors and they make beautiful clothes. They amazing dressmakers, and they did that by interning and doing apprenticeships. So it's a system. There's many routes to achieving that.
Well, folks, can we just give one more round of applause for Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and it's just so wonderful to hear about this process. So fantastic. Well, thanks everyone, and stick around for a little bit. We're going to probably just have a little time for some last cocktails, and then we'll clean up. But make sure you ask any questions you can while you got your great designer here, and check out the show and get your photo while you can. Thanks everyone.